200,000 years ago, you were not the only human on Earth. You weren't even the most impressive one. There were at least 8 other human species walking around at the same time as us, and on paper, several of them were doing better than we were. Bigger brains, tougher bodies, longer track records. One of them had already been surviving ice ages for over 300,000 years before our species even showed up to the party. And then, in what amounts to a blink of geological time, every single one of them vanished. Except us. Not because we were destined to. Genetic evidence suggests our own species nearly didn't make it either. At one point, Homo sapiens may have dropped to just a few thousand people, one bad winter away from joining the others in the fossil record. So the real question isn't, why did humans win? It's how did the underdog outlast 7 or 8 other versions of itself? And the answer is stranger, and a lot less flattering to our egos than you'd expect. Let's meet the competition first, because you can't appreciate a survival story without knowing who else was in the race. Homo erectus left Africa nearly 2 million years ago and made it as far as Java. It used fire, made tools that worked so well the design barely changed for over 1 million years, and survived roughly 10 times longer than we've existed so far. The Neanderthals were built like the cold itself designed them. Thick-boned, barrel-chested, brains on average slightly larger than ours. They cared for their injured, wore jewelry made from eagle talons, and may have painted cave walls before we did. The Denisovans are almost a ghost species to us. We know them mainly from a pinky bone and a few teeth found in a Siberian cave. Yet their DNA still shows up today in some Pacific Island and Aboriginal Australian populations at levels over 4%. There was a meter-tall species on the island of Flores hunting dwarf elephants. There was Homo naledi in a South African cave system so tight that only researchers built like acrobats could squeeze in to find it, apparently burying its dead with a brain a third the size of yours. This was the world modern humans were born into. Crowded, competitive, full of cousins who had already solved fire, tools, and cold. So what actually happened to them, and why didn't it happen to us? Here's the twist that surprises most people. There was no single event. No war that wiped out the Neanderthals in an afternoon. No meteor, no villain. What the evidence actually shows is a slow squeeze. Several pressures that were each survivable alone, stacking together until they weren't. The first pressure was climate. The Ice Age world didn't sit still. It swung wildly between brutal cold and sudden warmth, sometimes within a single lifetime. Species locked tightly into one environment and one style of hunting were making a bet, and the bet only paid off if that environment kept showing up. Neanderthals had specialized brilliantly for cold steppe and big game. When the climate started shifting faster than a small, scattered population could follow, that specialization turned from a strength into a trap. The second pressure is one people almost always underestimate: raw population size. Neanderthal DNA shows the genetic fingerprint of a small, thinly spread population, likely only in the tens of thousands across all of Europe and Western Asia. Small populations aren't just fragile to inbreeding and bad luck. They innovate less, simply because innovation is a numbers game, and worse, a good idea discovered by one small isolated band had nowhere to travel and often died with the person who thought of it. Which leads to what many researchers now consider the real deciding factor: social networks. Sites linked to early modern humans show shells, pigments, and prized tool-making stone moved hundreds of kilometers from their source. Evidence of wide trade and contact between distant groups. Neanderthal sites show materials sourced from much closer to home. That sounds like a minor detail. It isn't. A wide network is a distributed insurance policy. If your hunting grounds have a catastrophic year, you have allies elsewhere. And it's an idea delivery system. A tool improvement invented in one place can reach another group within a generation instead of vanishing. Over tens of thousands of years, that compounds like interest. A more connected population doesn't need smarter individuals to out-innovate an isolated one. It just needs more chances for good ideas to survive and spread. Add to that diet. Neanderthal bones show an isotopic signature close to an apex predator's enormous amounts of large game meat. Brilliant, as long as the mammoths keep showing up. Early modern human sites, by contrast, show fish, shellfish, birds, small game, and processed plant foods. A species that can eat almost anything survives a bad year. A species betting everything on one food source does not. And then, technology sealed the gap. Composite tools, stone points bound to shafts with adhesive, eyed needles for fitted layered clothing, which is dramatically warmer than draped hides, nets, snares, fishing gear opening up entire new food categories. None of this means Neanderthals were unsophisticated. They weren't. It means the modern human toolkit was diversifying faster, almost certainly because those wide trade networks were spreading every clever new idea further and faster. Now here's where the story stops being a clean, "we won" narrative, because it isn't one. In the early 2010s, DNA sequencing revealed that Neanderthals aren't actually extinct. Not entirely. If your ancestry traces outside sub-Saharan Africa, you are carrying 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA right now, in this moment, reading this. Some Pacific populations carry several percent Denisovan DNA on top of that. These weren't two species that never met. They interbred, repeatedly, across tens of thousands of years. Which means Neanderthals didn't simply lose. A smaller, isolated population got gradually absorbed into a larger, faster-growing one, generation after generation of intermarriage, until Neanderthal quietly stopped being a separate branch at all, even though pieces of it are scattered through billions of people alive today, including you. So let's kill a few myths quickly, because this topic collects bad science like a magnet. Myth 1. The brutish, stupid caveman. That image traces back to one badly reconstructed Neanderthal skeleton from over a century ago, which turned out to belong to an elderly man with severe arthritis, mistaken for the species' normal posture. The real evidence shows equal or larger brain volume, symbolic jewelry, probable cave art, and social care for the sick. Myth 2. This was a clean war modern humans won. The interbreeding evidence alone kills that. Whatever happened, it involved kinship as much as competition. Myth 3. There was one silver bullet cause. There wasn't. It was climate, population size, diet, and networks, compounding together over tens of thousands of years. Any one of them alone was survivable. Myth 4. And the one worth sitting with. That our own survival was ever guaranteed. It wasn't. Homo sapiens went through our own population near misses. We didn't win this by being destined to. We won it by accumulating a stack of small advantages, connection, flexibility, sheer numbers, that happened to be just enough while equally capable cousins ran out of runway. For nearly the entire history of our genus, being human was never a solo act. There were always others. And one by one, not through a single dramatic ending, but through the slow compounding weight of climate, isolation, and connection, they stopped existing as separate branches. Some vanished outright. Others were folded quietly into us, so thoroughly that a piece of a different human species is sitting in your DNA right now, whether you knew it or not. We're not the strongest branch of that family tree. We're just the last one standing, carrying the others with us, whether we meant to or not.